Susanne Anderson, 34, successful business owner with a reputation for professionalism. My phone buzzes with the wedding planner's number. You're uninvited from the wedding, she states coldly. Family's orders. My heart shatters, but I reply evenly. I understand. She hangs up, smugness evident in her tone. 20 minutes later, panic in her voice. Miss Anderson, we didn't know you own the entire venue. The wedding tomorrow, 200 guests confirmed and nowhere else to go. Before I continue this story, where are you watching from? Like and subscribe if family drama hits close to home. Growing up in Portland, I always felt protective of my sister Allison. With a 5-year age gap between us, I naturally fell into the role of mentor and guardian. Our childhood home buzzed with the energy of a typical middle-class American family. Our parents, Barbara and Robert Anderson, worked tirelessly to provide for us. Mom managed a local bank branch while Dad taught high school mathematics. They instilled in us the values of hard work and education, though they approached this differently with each of us. When I turned 22, my life took an unexpected turn. My grandparents had left me a modest inheritance. While many might have used such a windfall for travel or immediate pleasures, I saw it differently. I had just completed my business degree and harbored entrepreneurial ambitions that made my family raise their eyebrows. You should put that money toward a house, Mom suggested over Sunday dinner shortly after I received the inheritance. Real estate is always a good investment. Dad nodded in agreement. Or maybe invested in some reliable stocks, something safe. But I had spent 4 years studying business models and market opportunities. During college, I worked 3 jobs simultaneously: morning shifts at a coffee shop weekend, hours at a wedding venue as an assistant coordinator, and evenings doing bookkeeping for a small local business. This wasn't just about making money. I was gathering insights into different business operations, particularly drawn to the wedding industry. I have a plan, I told them, pulling out a detailed business proposal I had been refining for months. They listened politely but with visible skepticism as I outlined my vision for purchasing and renovating a historic property to create a premier wedding venue. By the end of my presentation, Dad looked concerned while Mom seemed resigned. It just seems so risky, Susanne, Dad said gently. Why not start with something smaller? Because this is the opportunity I see, I replied with conviction that surprised even me. For the next 6 years, I lived frugally, saving every penny while developing my business plan. I maintained a day job in event management while scouting properties and building industry connections. The Portland wedding market was growing, but I noticed a gap in truly distinctive venues that combined historical character with modern amenities. At 28, I founded Hawthorne Estate, a neglected but architecturally stunning 19th-century mansion sitting on 5 acres just outside the city. The property had fallen into disrepair, scaring off most potential buyers, but I saw past the peeling paint and overgrown gardens to the elegant bones beneath. The renovation nearly broke me financially, physically, and emotionally. Unexpected structural issues, permit delays, and contractor problems threatened to derail everything. There were nights I slept on a cot in what would eventually become the bridal suite, too exhausted to drive home after 18-hour workdays. You can always sell and cut your losses, Aunt Margaret suggested during a family gathering, not bothering to hide her hope that I would fail. As my mother's older sister, she had always maintained an outsized influence on our family dynamics, positioning herself as the authority on proper life choices. Thanks for the concern, I replied diplomatically, but I'm seeing this through. Within 2 years, the transformation was complete. The Anderson estate quickly became the most sought-after wedding venue in the region. Portland Monthly featured it in their Best of the City issue, and a regional lifestyle magazine did a 6-page spread on the renovation journey. Bookings flooded in, and we were soon scheduling weddings 2 years in advance. My success came with a price. The demanding schedule of weekend events and weekday meetings left little time for dating or socializing. While I maintained close relationships with a small circle of friends, my family increasingly saw me as distant and work-obsessed. Meanwhile, Allison followed a completely different path. After earning a communications degree, she built a successful career in public relations, working with local businesses on their marketing strategies. More naturally social than me, Allison maintained an active social life and dated regularly. We remained close through our 20s, though. I sensed a subtle competitiveness developing, particularly after the venue's success. Allison would occasionally make comments about how I was married to my business, or how some people prefer relationships with actual humans. I brushed these off as sisterly teasing, not recognizing the underlying resentment taking root. Everything changed the Christmas after my 33rd birthday. Our family had gathered at our parents' home for our traditional holiday dinner, when Allison arrived glowing a striking diamond ring on her left hand. Nathan proposed, she announced, pulling a tall, handsome man forward. I had heard about Nathan Hayes over the past few months, but hadn't met him yet due to my packed schedule. He was 36, a successful real estate developer from a wealthy Portland family with connections throughout the Pacific Northwest. The room erupted in congratulations. Mom cried happy tears while Dad shook Nathan's hand vigorously. Aunt Margaret, who had joined us as she did every year, immediately took charge of exclaiming over the ring and asking about wedding plans. "I am so happy for you," I said, embracing my sister warmly, "and I have the perfect wedding gift. The estate is yours for your big day whenever you want it, whatever you envision. My contribution to making your day perfect." Allison hugged me tightly. "Really, that would be amazing. Your venue is exactly what I've always dreamed of." I noticed several reactions to my offer, Nathan's polite but reserved smile, Aunt Margaret's slight frown, and my mother's quick glance between her sister and her younger daughter. Something unspoken passed between them, but in the excitement of the moment, I dismissed it. Over the following weeks, I observed subtle changes in family dynamics. Allison became increasingly distant, often too busy with wedding preparations to return my calls. Mom would deflect my questions about wedding plans with vague responses about letting Allison handle things her way. Dad, always conflict-averse, buried himself in sports channels whenever wedding discussions arose. The undercurrents became clearer at a family dinner 2 months after the engagement announcement. Nathan's parents joined us, bringing an unmistakable air of old-money confidence into my parents' modest dining room. "So, you run a wedding factory," Mrs. Hayes commented while examining my mother's china. "How interesting." "The Anderson estate is a boutique venue," I corrected gently. "We host no more than 40 exclusive events annually." "Susanne built the business from nothing," Dad added with pride. "Turned a derelict property into the most popular venue in Portland." Nathan's father sipped his wine. "New businesses are always exciting. The challenge, of course, is sustainability. Most fail within 5 years. We're entering our 7th year," I replied evenly, "with bookings through the next 3. "Susanne has always been our ambitious one," Aunt Margaret interjected, sometimes at the expense of other priorities. And there it was, the subtle undermining that had characterized our relationship since I was young. Margaret had never married or had children, instead building her identity around being the family matriarch and arbiter of proper behavior. My independence and success threatened the authority she had cultivated over decades. More concerning was how Allison seemed increasingly aligned with Margaret's perspective. My sister, once my closest ally, now watched me with a strange mixture of admiration and resentment. I was losing her to influences I couldn't counter without appearing defensive. I would soon discover how deep those influences reached, and how completely they would transform the relationship I had cherished most of my life. The first sign of serious trouble came when Allison announced she had hired Diana Pierce as her wedding planner. Diana had built a reputation working with Portland's elite, including coordinating events for visiting celebrities and political figures. Her services commanded fees that startled even me, familiar as I was with the high-end wedding market. "Diana Pierce. She's excellent but expensive," I commented when Allison told me. I could have recommended several wonderful planners who would work well with the estate. Allison's smile tightened. "Nathan's mother suggested her. Diana plans all the important society weddings." The implied hierarchy wasn't lost on me. Important society weddings, unlike the merely beautiful, meaningful celebrations I facilitated every weekend. Our initial consultation at the venue confirmed my concerns. Diana arrived 15 minutes late, dressed impeccably in a designer suit that probably cost more than most of my clients' wedding dresses. She barely acknowledged my greeting before beginning to critique the space. "These windows let in too much natural light," she said, gesturing toward the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased panoramic views of the gardens. "We'll need custom draping to control the exposure." Most photographers actually love the natural light I offered. It creates beautiful, warm images without harsh flash. Diana glanced at me as though just remembering I was there. I believe I know what photographs well, Miss Anderson. We'll need the draping. Throughout the tour, she dismissed features that our clients consistently praised: the original hardwood floors too reflective, the crystal chandeliers competing with my design concept, and the historic architecture limiting our options. I maintained my professionalism despite the growing knot in my stomach. This was still Allison's wedding, and I wanted her day to be perfect, even if that meant accommodating a planner who treated my venue like an inconvenient canvas rather than the carefully restored historic property it was. Allison, who had once admired every detail of the renovation, now nodded along with Diana's critiques. When I caught her eye with a questioning look, she averted her gaze. After Diana left with a promise to send over her preliminary concept adjustments, I tried to connect with my sister. Ali, is this really the direction you want for your wedding? The estate has a certain character that Diana seems determined to cover up. Allison sighed. Susan, I know this place is your baby, but I need to create something unique for my wedding. Something that reflects Nathan and me, not just your vision. Of course, I said, stung by both the dismissal and her use of Susan, something she only did when annoyed with me. I just want to make sure you're getting what you want, not what Diana or Nathan's family thinks you should want. Her expression hardened. What I want is support without commentary. Can you manage that? I stepped back literally and figuratively. Absolutely, it's your wedding. I'm just here to help however I can. But help quickly became a nebulous concept as Diana systematically excluded me from planning meetings. Venue walkthroughs were scheduled when I had other commitments. Design discussions happened off-site. Vendor meetings occurred without notification to my staff. My venue manager, Jennifer, began reporting Diana's increasingly demanding behavior. She asked us to remove the antique settee from the main hall, said it clashed with her vision. Jennifer told me one evening after a particularly tense interaction. When I explained it was a permanent fixture, she said we clearly didn't understand the caliber of event they were planning. 6 weeks before the wedding, tensions escalated at another family dinner. Aunt Margaret held court at the head of the table despite being in my parents' home. Allison tells me you've been difficult about some of the changes Diana wants to make, she said as she passed the salad bowl. I carefully placed my fork down. There haven't been any difficulties. We've accommodated every request possible. Some changes simply aren't feasible due to the historical designation of the building. That's exactly what I mean, Margaret continued. Rigid, inflexible. This is your sister's once-in-a-lifetime day. My father attempted to redirect the conversation. The salmon turned out great, Barbara. Did you try that new recipe? But Margaret wasn't finished. I'm just saying that some people might prioritize family happiness over business rules occasionally. Margaret, my father said with uncharacteristic firmness, that's enough. Later that evening, Allison pulled me aside. I hoped for a heart-to-heart, a chance to reconnect with my sister beneath all the wedding stress. Instead, she said, I've been meaning to tell you. We've had to adjust the bridal party a bit due to Nathan's family obligations. Adjust how I asked, already sensing what was coming. His cousin Brittany needs to be included, so we're balancing the numbers. I hope you understand you're so busy with the venue that this is probably a relief anyway. I blinked, processing this information. You're removing me as a bridesmaid. It just makes more sense this way. You'll still be involved as the venue owner. The venue owner, not as her sister, not as the person who had bandaged her scraped knees, helped with homework, and taught her to drive. The venue owner. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak without my voice breaking. Later that night, I received a text from our cousin Heather. Just saw the updated bridesmaid announcement on Instagram. What the fuck happened? I hadn't even known Allison had made a public announcement. Scrolling through her account, I found the post, a carefully arranged photo of gift boxes for the final bridal party lineup. My name nowhere to be found. The caption thanked everyone for understanding the necessary adjustments to make room for those most important to our special day. Heather called me immediately. This is insane. What did Aunt Margaret do? What makes you think Margaret had anything to do with it? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. Please. She's been telling everyone who'll listen that you're too busy to properly participate in family events anymore. Said Allison was heartbroken, but understood that your business commitments had to come first. The narrative was becoming clear. I wasn't being pushed out, I was supposedly pulling away. The story painted me as the distant, career-obsessed sister who couldn't make time for family rather than the sister being systematically excluded. Despite this growing alienation, I continued accommodating every reasonable request for the venue. Diana's demands escalated, extending setup times beyond our permit allowances, insisting on hanging installations from weight-bearing beams, demanding staff work through legally required break periods. Each time, I found myself caught between maintaining professional standards and appearing like the difficult sister Margaret had portrayed me to be. Each concession I made seemed to invite 3 more demands. The final family gathering before the wedding occurred at my parents' home, ostensibly a casual barbecue to relax before the big day. I almost didn't attend, but I couldn't give Margaret more ammunition about my supposed absence from family functions. As I helped my mother clear plates from the patio table, I overheard a conversation from the kitchen window left ajar. Margaret's voice carried clearly. "Barbara, you need to speak with Susanne about her attitude. Allison is at her wits' end dealing with her sister's passive-aggressive behavior about the venue." "What passive-aggressive behavior?" my mother asked. "She's given them the venue for free and approved almost every change they've requested." "It's her tone, her body language. Always making Allison feel like she's imposing. Diana says she's never worked with a more difficult venue owner." My mother sighed. "Margaret, maybe Diana is the problem here. From what I've seen..." "The problem," Margaret interrupted, "is that Susanne can't stand not being the center of attention. She built that venue to feed her ego, and now she can't handle Allison having a wedding that might outshine her precious business." I stood, frozen plates in hand, waiting for my mother to defend me. Instead, she said softly, "I'll talk to her." The betrayal stung worse than anything Margaret had said. My own mother, unwilling to stand up to her sister, accepting the narrative that I was somehow sabotaging Allison's wedding by checks notes, providing a free luxury venue, and accommodating unreasonable demands. I quietly set the dishes down and left without saying goodbye to anyone. 3 days later, I received the call that would change everything. I was sitting at my kitchen table on Thursday afternoon, carefully wrapping Allison and Nathan's wedding gift, a pair of antique silver candlesticks that had belonged to our grandmother. Despite everything I had searched for months, to find them tracking them through 3 different estate sales after our grandmother had sold them years ago during financial difficulties. The candlesticks represented more than just a gift. They were a piece of our shared history, a connection to family traditions that transcended current tensions. I hoped they might serve as a peace offering, a reminder of our bond beyond the wedding drama. My phone buzzed beside me, Diana Pierce's name flashing on the screen. I braced myself for another last-minute demand or venue question. "Hello, Diana," I answered professionally. "Miss Anderson." Her voice was colder than usual, with a formality that immediately set alarm bells ringing. "Is everything all right? The venue is ready for tomorrow's setup?" "That won't be necessary," she interrupted. "I'm calling to inform you that you're uninvited from the wedding." The words hit like a physical blow. "Excuse me." "Family's orders," she continued, her tone clipped and final. "Your presence has been deemed disruptive to the harmony of the event." My hand gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Could you clarify whose decision this is?" "The family collectively agrees this is best. Allison is quite distressed about the situation, but feels this is the only solution given your behavior." My behavior, I repeated numbly. The constant undermining of planning decisions, the negativity toward design choices, the reluctance to accommodate reasonable requests. Diana listed these alleged offenses as though reading from a prepared statement. It's created an untenable situation. Inside, my heart was shattering. Outside, I maintained composure, years of professional experience, handling difficult clients coming to my rescue. "I understand," I said evenly. I could almost hear her surprise at my lack of protest. "Well, good. I'm glad we understand each other. Will there be anything else?" I asked, my voice steady despite the tsunami of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. "Number. That will be all." She hung up without another word, the smugness in her tone unmistakable. She'd won. I'd been removed from my own sister's wedding. The moment the call ended, the carefully constructed professional facade crumbled. Tears came in, heaving sobs that bent me double at my kitchen table, my head resting on the half-wrapped present. Not just tears of hurt, but of rage, betrayal, and disbelief. Through the blur, a memory surfaced: 12-year-old me with 7-year-old Allison at our cousin Tiffany's wedding. Allison had looked up at me with wide eyes and whispered, "When I get married someday, you'll be right next to me, won't you, Susie?" "Right next to you," I had promised, squeezing her small hand. "Sisters forever. Sisters forever." The phrase mocked me now as I tried to process what had happened. What had I done to deserve exclusion from one of the most important days of my sister's life? After the initial emotional breakdown, I attempted to reach Allison directly. My calls went straight to voicemail. Text messages showed as delivered but remained unread. I tried my parents next. Mom answered on the 4th ring. "Susanne, now isn't a good time. Mom, Diana just called to uninvite me from Allison's wedding. My own sister's wedding. What is happening?" A long pause. "Things have been very stressful with the wedding preparations. Allison feels it would be better if everyone just focuses on their roles. My role as her sister isn't important enough to attend her wedding." My voice cracked. "You'll still be there in your capacity as the venue owner," she offered weakly. "That's not the same thing, and you know it." Is this really coming from Allison, or is this Aunt Margaret or Diana or Nathan's family? Another pause. "I need to go, Susanne. We can talk after the wedding when everyone's calmer." She hung up before I could respond. My father's phone went unanswered. Desperate for clarity, I texted Heather, "Need to talk. Emergency. Coffee." She responded immediately, "Cornerstone Cafe. 20 minutes. Heather was already waiting when I arrived, 2 coffees on the table. One look at my face, and she stood to hug me. "What happened? You look terrible." I sank into the chair opposite her. "I've been uninvited from the wedding." "What?" she nearly shouted, causing several nearby patrons to turn. Lowering her voice, she continued, "That's insane. Why?" I recounted Diana's call verbatim, my mother's evasive response, and Allison's silence. Heather's expression darkened with each detail. "This has Aunt Margaret written all over it. She's been on a campaign for weeks." "What kind of campaign?" "Spreading rumors that you're trying to overshadow Allison. That you're using her wedding for publicity for your venue. That you're jealous she found love while you're still single." Each accusation felt like a fresh wound. None of that is true. "I know that," Heather said, reaching for my hand. "But Margaret's been working on Allison since the engagement, playing on her insecurities. You know how Allison's always measured herself against you, your success, your independence? Margaret's convinced her that you'll somehow make the wedding about you. That's ridiculous. I've bent over backward to accommodate their demands." "There's more," Heather continued reluctantly. "Nathan's parents have concerns about the family image. Apparently they weren't thrilled that the weddings at your venue to begin with wanted something more exclusive. But you offering it for free was too good to pass up financially. So I'm good enough to provide a free luxury venue, but not good enough to attend as family." The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. "It's messed up," Heather agreed. "And the worst part is no one's standing up to Margaret. Not your mom, not your dad, not Allison." The realization settled heavily. I had been completely abandoned by my family. The people who should have defended me had instead accepted a false narrative about my character and intentions. Returning home, I faced a critical decision. As the venue owner, I had legal options. The contract Allison and Diana had signed included standard clauses about management rights and behavioral expectations. Technically, I could cancel the event based on their treatment of staff alone. I pulled out the contract, reviewing the terms with a professional eye rather than a wounded heart. Every fiber of my being wanted to call Diana back and tell her to find another venue with less than 24 hours' notice, see how smugly she'd handled 200 guests and no location. But this wasn't just any client. This was my sister. Despite everything, I couldn't bring myself to retaliate in a way that would cause permanent damage to our relationship. I spent the evening surrounded by childhood photo albums, tracing the history of our sisterhood through frozen moments, Allison and me, building sandcastles at the beach, helping her with science fair projects, celebrating her college graduation. Where had that connection gone? How had we reached this point of such complete disconnection? Around 11 that night, I made my decision. I wouldn't cancel the venue, but I wouldn't roll over either. There would be consequences for how I'd been treated, but they wouldn't include ruining Allison's wedding day. I just needed to decide exactly what those consequences would be. The next morning, I arrived at the estate earlier than usual. We had another event scheduled for Sunday, and I wanted to ensure everything was proceeding smoothly despite my emotional state. The staff had become like family to me, and their support was tangible as I entered. Jennifer approached immediately. "We heard what happened. It's completely unacceptable." "Thank you," I said, simply touched by their loyalty. "But we're still proceeding professionally with tomorrow's event." Of course, she nodded, though I could see the righteous indignation in her eyes. "Diana's team starts setup at noon. Do you want me to handle them?" "No," I decided. "I'll oversee everything personally. Just a normal event." Jennifer looked skeptical, but didn't argue. At 11:30, I was reviewing rental deliveries in the main office when my cell phone rang. Diana Pierce again. I considered letting it go to voicemail but decided against it. Better to maintain the professional high ground. "Anderson Estate, Susanne speaking." "Miss Anderson." Diana's voice had transformed completely from yesterday's smug finality. Now it trembled with barely controlled panic. "We need to discuss the situation." "What situation would that be, Diana?" I asked evenly. "There seems to have been a misunderstanding about your role in tomorrow's event." "No misunderstanding. You were very clear yesterday. I'm uninvited from the wedding family's orders. I understood perfectly." "Yes, well." She cleared her throat. "What I perhaps failed to clarify is that this pertained to your attendance as a guest, not as the venue owner." "I'm aware of the distinction," I replied. "You made it quite clear that my presence was deemed disruptive. I wouldn't want to disrupt anything." Her voice took on an edge of desperation. "Miss Anderson, we didn't realize it wasn't made clear to us that you personally own the entire venue. I'm surprised given your thorough research into all wedding vendors. The Anderson Estate, Anderson being my name." "Yes, well, we assumed it was a family business or perhaps named after the property's original owners." I remained silent, letting her squirm. "Miss Anderson," she continued, panic, now evident the wedding is tomorrow. 200 guests have confirmed. The invitations specified this location. Nathan's business associates are flying in from across the country. "That does sound stressful," I commented mildly. "We don't have a backup venue," she admitted, the professional mask cracking completely. "There isn't a comparable space available on such short notice anywhere in Portland." "That is surprising. Most event planners of your caliber maintain contingency options." "Susanne," she dropped the formality in her desperation, "please. What do you need from us to resolve this situation?" Before I could respond, another call came through my mother. "I should take this, Diana. It seems my family is trying to reach me." I switched calls. "Hello, Mom?" "Susanne," my mother's voice was frantic. "What's happening with the venue? Diana just called us in a complete state." "Diana informed me yesterday that I'm uninvited from the wedding. As the uninvited party, I assumed that extended to my property as well." "You know that's not what was meant," she protested weakly. "Do I? Because the message seemed quite clear. My presence is disruptive to the harmony of the event. The family collectively agrees." "Susanne, please. This is your sister's wedding." "Yes, it is. The same sister who removed me as a bridesmaid without a conversation, who has ignored my calls and texts, and who apparently agrees I shouldn't even attend her wedding. That sister. She's been under tremendous pressure from everyone, Margaret Nathan's family, Diana. She didn't know how to handle it. And throwing her sister under the bus was the solution she came up with." My mother sighed heavily. "What do you want us to do?" "I want someone to take responsibility. I want an apology, a real one, not a convenient one, because you suddenly need something from me." "I'll talk to Allison," she promised. "Do that," I said, ending the call. Within minutes, my phone exploded with messages. My father left a voicemail that physically pained me to hear. "Susie, it's Dad." I don't know what's happening, but please call me. I know you wouldn't ruin Allison's day. You're better than that. His message hurt because it contained both faith in my character and a subtle pressure to give in the conflict avoidance that had allowed Margaret to gain so much influence in our family. Allison's call came next. I steeled myself before answering. Susan. Her voice was small, tearful. What's going on? Diana says there's a problem with the venue. Diana uninvited me from your wedding yesterday, I stated flatly. On your behalf, apparently. I didn't tell her to say it like that. Things have been so tense and everyone kept saying you were making it harder than it needed to be, and I just thought maybe some space would make tomorrow easier. Space, I repeated. You thought uninviting your sister from your wedding would create healthy space. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Her voice rose defensively. Nathan's family has expectations. Aunt Margaret keeps saying I need to stand up for myself. Mom says I need to make peace. Diana says you're being difficult about everything. I'm just trying to have a perfect day without conflict. By creating the ultimate conflict. How's that working out? She began to cry in earnest. Please, Susanne. I can't lose the venue. Everything is ready. People are traveling. We've spent so much money. You should have thought about that before deciding I wasn't worthy of attending my own sister's wedding. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Please don't do this. Her apology, while emotional, rang hollow, motivated by panic, rather than genuine remorse or understanding. I'll be in touch, I said, ending the call. Aunt Margaret's voicemail arrived next. Susanne Anderson. This is absolutely disgraceful behavior. We all know you planned this revenge from the beginning. Your sister is in tears. Your mother is beside herself. If you had any decency at all. I deleted the rest without listening. Nathan's call was the most surprising. I had barely spoken to him throughout the planning process. Susanne, Nathan Hayes. I hope we can resolve this situation professionally. If this is about compensation for the venue, I'm prepared to offer market rate plus a premium for the inconvenience. His approach, treating the situation as a business transaction rather than a family crisis, clarified exactly how he viewed me, not as Allison's sister but as a vendor creating complications. This isn't about money, Nathan. It's about respect and family, two concepts that seem in short supply lately. Everyone's under pressure here, he said smoothly. Let's not make rash decisions that will affect relationships long term. Interesting perspective. Was uninviting me from the wedding not a rash decision affecting relationships long term? He paused. I understand you're upset. What would make this right from your perspective? At least he was asking the right question, even if his tone suggested he was merely negotiating a business deal. I'm still considering that, I replied honestly. I'll let you know. Throughout all this, my staff had been fielding calls from Diana's assistants, rental companies seeking confirmation, and even some guests who had somehow caught wind of potential issues. Jennifer approached me with concern. Susanne, what do you want us to tell everyone? Diana's team is due here in 30 minutes. I took a deep breath, weighing my options one final time. Tell them the event is proceeding. I'll be in my office working out the details. As Jennifer left, my phone chimed with a text from Heather. Whatever you decide, I've got your back. They all need to learn they can't treat you like this. Her support strengthened my resolve. I wasn't going to cancel Allison's wedding that would cause harm beyond repair, but I wasn't going to pretend nothing had happened either. The next hours would determine not just the fate of tomorrow's wedding, but the future of my family relationships for years to come. By late afternoon, I had retreated to my apartment, needing distance from the venue and the constant barrage of calls. I silenced my phone, allowing only Jennifer's messages through, in case of genuine venue emergencies. I brewed a cup of chamomile tea, my grandmother's ritual for clear thinking in difficult times, and sat by the window overlooking the city. The skyline blurred as tears threatened again, but I blinked them back. This wasn't the time for emotion. It was the time for decisions. What did I truly want from this situation? Revenge? That fleeting satisfaction would damage Allison permanently and reflect poorly on me. Capitulation? Simply pretending nothing happened would enable future mistreatment and deepen the family's dysfunctional patterns. I needed a middle path, one that maintained my dignity while leaving room for genuine reconciliation. My grandmother's voice seemed to whisper from memory. When family wounds, you deeply respond not from the wound, but from the love that remains despite it. Love did remain beneath the hurt and anger. I loved my sister even now. I loved our shared history and the possibility of a future relationship. But love without respect becomes toxic, and boundaries were necessary for healing. I reached for my phone and called the one person who could offer objective perspective, my best friend Melissa, who had known both Allison and me since childhood. They did what she exclaimed after I recounted the situation. That's beyond belief even for your family. The question is, what to do now, I said. Everyone's in panic mode, expecting me to either completely cave or completely destroy the wedding. What are your options? She asked practically. Option 1. Cancel everything. They've broken the contract with their behavior towards staff alone. Legally defensible, but morally questionable. Nuclear option. Next. Option 2. Proceed as normal, attend as planned, pretend nothing happened, keep the peace. And teach them you're a doormat, Melissa observed. Next. Option 3. Allow the wedding to proceed but establish clear boundaries. I'm thinking of attending in my capacity as venue owner only, professional, courteous, but not participating as family. Getting warmer, she encouraged. What else? I could insist on apologies, real ones, not panic-induced before considering any future family events here. And maybe require some family counseling sessions if they want to rebuild the relationship. Melissa was quiet for a moment. Susan, what would make healing possible afterward? What outcome leaves the door open without letting them walk all over you? Her question crystallized my thinking. What I needed was acknowledgement of the harm done, genuine remorse, and changed behavior going forward. Punishment wouldn't achieve that. Only clear boundaries and consequences could. After our call, I phoned Jennifer at the venue. Jennifer, I need you to implement some changes for tomorrow. Just say the word, she replied loyally. I outlined specific instructions. The family table arrangement needed adjustment. Certain staff would report directly to me, not Diana. Security would operate under modified protocols. Small changes that would be noticed by my family but invisible to guests. Also, prepare my office with refreshments and a monitor connected to the security cameras. I'll be observing from there during the ceremony and initial reception. You're not attending? Jennifer sounded surprised. Not as a guest. I'll be present as the owner, ensuring everything runs smoothly. Understood. Anything else? Yes. If anyone from my family asks for me, direct them to my office. No exceptions, including Diana or Aunt Margaret. With the venue arrangements settled, I turned to personal preparation. I selected my outfit for the next day, not the emerald green dress I'd originally planned to wear as a guest, but a professional black pantsuit that clearly communicated my role. Business, not family. I wrote out talking points for the inevitable confrontations, focusing on clear, non-accusatory statements. I was uninvited from attending as family. So I'm respecting that boundary while fulfilling my professional obligations. I'm here to ensure your day proceeds perfectly as contracted. That evening, I performed my self-care ritual with extra attention, a long bath with lavender oil, my journal, to process lingering emotions, and a carefully prepared meal rather than the takeout I might normally grab during a crisis. Physical nurturing to support emotional boundaries. Despite my preparations, sleep proved elusive. I drifted between consciousness and troubled dreams, where I searched for Allison in empty rooms, calling her name, while she remained just out of sight. I woke at dawn exhausted but resolute. The morning brought a sense of calm determination. I dressed carefully, applied makeup with extra attention, and fastened my grandmother's small pearl necklace. A reminder of the woman who had taught me that boundaries and love could coexist. At the venue, staff greeted me with supportive smiles and quiet efficiency. We conducted a final inspection together, ensuring everything was perfect despite the emotional undercurrents. The garden flowers had opened beautifully, the vintage chandeliers sparkled in the morning light, and the antique wooden floors gleamed with fresh polish. The team's been briefed, Jennifer confirmed. Everyone understands the situation and their roles today. Thank you, I said sincerely. You've all been extraordinary through this. We've got your back, she replied simply. This place is special because of you. The family should remember that. I nodded, touched by the loyalty, but determined to keep my professional composure. Let's give them a flawless wedding while maintaining our boundaries. With that, I retreated to my office to await the arrival of the wedding party and the confrontations that would inevitably follow. By 9:30, the venue hummed with activity. Florists arranged elaborate centerpieces in the main hall, while lighting technicians adjusted settings for the evening reception. From my office monitor, I tracked the movements occasionally using the intercom to address questions or make suggestions. At 10:15, Diana's assistant arrived, followed shortly by Diana herself. I watched on the monitor as she swept in, immediately beginning to issue commands to my staff. Jennifer intercepted her smoothly. Good morning, Miss Pierce. All preparations are proceeding according to schedule. Miss Anderson has approved the final arrangements. Diana's head snapped up. Miss Anderson is here? Of course. She's overseeing operations from the main office. She's asked that any concerns be directed there. Diana's face flushed. I see. She hesitated visibly before making her way toward my office, smoothing her expression into professional neutrality before knocking. Enter, I called. Diana stepped in her designer suit, as impeccable as always, though her eyes betrayed a night with little sleep. Susanne. Thank you for continuing with the wedding arrangements. I'm a professional, Diana. The contract will be honored. I remained seated at my desk, not offering her a chair. She shifted uncomfortably. About yesterday's conversation? I believe that matter is settled, I interrupted. You delivered a message. I received it. I'm here today as the venue owner, not as family. That should resolve any concerns about my presence being disruptive. Allison didn't intend. Allison can speak for herself if she wishes to discuss it further. Now, is there a venue matter you need assistance with? Diana recognized the dismissal. Number. Everything seems to be in order. Excellent. Please ensure your team respects our staff and follows venue policies today. Any violations will result in immediate intervention. The implied threat was clear. I wouldn't hesitate to assert authority if pushed. She nodded stiffly and left. By 11, the bridal party began arriving. From my monitor, I watched the bridesmaids enter, chattering excitedly, until Jennifer directed them to the preparation suite. Their expressions became confused when they realized I wasn't with the group greeting them. My mother arrived at 11:30, immediately asking Jennifer about my whereabouts. The camera didn't capture audio, but I could read the concern on her face as Jennifer pointed toward my office. She started in that direction, but was intercepted by Aunt Margaret's arrival, pulling her attention away. At 11:45, my father appeared, separating himself from my mother and Margaret to approach my office directly. His knock was gentle, hesitant. Come in, Dad, I called, my resolve softening slightly at the sight of his worried face. Susie, he said, closing the door behind him, you're really doing this, hiding away in the office during your sister's wedding. I'm not hiding, Dad. I'm respecting the boundaries that were established yesterday when I was uninvited. He sighed heavily, taking the chair across from my desk. This has gotten completely out of hand. Your mother is beside herself. Allison is barely holding it together in the bridal suite. I'm sorry they're distressed, I said sincerely. But actions have consequences. I was explicitly uninvited from attending as family. I'm honoring that while fulfilling my professional obligations. Can't you set this aside just for today? For Allison's sake? I offered Allison this entire venue as a gift. I accommodated every unreasonable demand. I tolerated being removed as a bridesmaid without explanation. I accepted being excluded from planning. The one thing I won't do is pretend it's okay to be uninvited from my sister's wedding entirely and then welcome back only when it's convenient. He looked down at his hands. I should have stepped in sooner, should have stood up to Margaret years ago. Yes, you should have, I agreed gently. But today isn't about fixing decades of family dynamics. It's about me maintaining healthy boundaries while still ensuring Allison has a beautiful wedding. Will you at least consider joining the family for the reception later after the ceremony? We'll see, Dad. That depends on several conversations that haven't happened yet. He nodded, understanding. I love you, Susie. I'm proud of the woman you've become. I just wish. I know I interrupted, not wanting to break down. I love you too. Now go be with Allison. She needs her father today. He stood, hesitated, then came around the desk to hug me tightly before leaving. Shortly after noon, a commotion appeared on the monitor. Aunt Margaret, dressed in an expensive lavender suit, was gesturing angrily at Jennifer, pointing repeatedly toward my office. Jennifer's posture remained professionally firm as she apparently refused whatever Margaret was demanding. I sighed, pressing the intercom button. Jennifer, please escort Miss Wilson to my office if she wishes to speak with me. Minutes later, Margaret burst through the door without knocking, face flushed with indignation. This is absolutely outrageous, she declared. You're ruining Allison's wedding with this childish behavior. I remained seated, expression neutral. Good afternoon, Aunt Margaret. What childish behavior would that be? This, sulking in your office, making everyone worry about whether you'll sabotage the event, creating drama on Allison's special day. Interesting perspective. Yesterday, I was uninvited from attending my sister's wedding because my presence would supposedly be disruptive to the harmony of the event. Today, I'm being disruptive by not attending as instructed. Don't twist things, she snapped. No one said you couldn't come. I have Diana's exact words recorded in my call logs, Aunt Margaret. You're uninvited from the wedding. Family's orders. Quite explicit. Well, obviously that was a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, it was very clear. I'm simply respecting the boundary that was established. Margaret's eyes narrowed. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Making everyone panic, asserting your power because you own this place. I'm not enjoying any of this, I replied evenly. I'm heartbroken that my relationship with my sister has deteriorated to this point. I'm disappointed that family members I trusted chose to exclude me rather than address conflicts directly. But I'm also not willing to pretend nothing happened when I was explicitly told I wasn't welcome. So you'll punish everyone because your feelings got hurt. I've honored the contract. The venue is fully staffed and perfectly prepared. The wedding will proceed beautifully. How is that punishment? Before Margaret could respond, there was another knock. Jennifer poked her head in. Excuse me, Miss Anderson. Nathan's parents are asking to speak with you. Should I send them in? Margaret's expression shifted to alarm. That's not necessary. Please do, Jennifer, I interrupted. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes entered looking distinctly uncomfortable. Mrs. Hayes wore an expression of barely disguised disdain, while Mr. Hayes appeared more calculating. Miss Anderson, he began formally. We understand there's been some family misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Mr. Hayes. I was uninvited from my sister's wedding yesterday. Today, I'm fulfilling my professional obligations as venue owner while respecting that decision. Mrs. Hayes' eyebrows rose. You were uninvited. We were told you had a scheduling conflict. I smiled thinly. How interesting. No, there was no scheduling conflict. Diana Pierce called explicitly to uninvite me at the family's request. The Hayes exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Whatever they had been told clearly didn't match reality. This is a private family matter, Margaret interjected. I'm sure we can… Excuse me, a new voice interrupted from the doorway. Allison stood there in her wedding dress, makeup streaked with tears. I need to speak with my sister. Alone. The room fell silent. After a moment, Mr. Hayes nodded. Of course, we should check on Nathan anyway. He ushered his wife out, followed by a reluctant Margaret who paused at the door. Allison, remember what we discussed? Out, Aunt Margaret, Allison said firmly. This is between Susanne and me. When the door closed, we faced each other in silence. Allison looked beautiful despite the tears, her dress a classic A-line with delicate lace details that complemented her slender frame perfectly. You look stunning, I said softly. Don't, she replied, voice breaking. Don't be nice to me, I don't deserve it. Ollie, I let them uninvite you from my wedding, she interrupted, fresh tears spilling. My own sister. The person who taught me to ride a bike and helped me through my first breakup and loaned me rent money during my internship. How could I do that? The raw pain in her voice reached past my carefully constructed boundaries. You were under a lot of pressure. That's no excuse. She moved further into the office, sinking into a chair. I let Margaret poison everything. I let Diana bulldoze over your expertise. I let Nathan's family make me ashamed of where I came from. I was so focused on having the perfect society wedding that I forgot what actually matters. Her sincerity was unmistakable, the practiced phrases of social obligation replaced by genuine remorse. It hurt, I acknowledged simply. Being excluded from each decision, removed as bridesmaid without discussion, and finally uninvited completely, it felt like our entire history together meant nothing. It means everything, she whispered. I just got lost in trying to please everyone else. Everyone except me, I pointed out gently. Yes, she admitted. Because I knew you'd love me anyway. So you became the safe person to disappoint. She looked up, meeting my eyes directly. But that's terrible, isn't it? Taking advantage of the person who loves you most reliably. Her insight surprised me. This wasn't the defensive Allison of recent months, but my thoughtful sister breaking through the social pressure. What do you want to happen now, Allie? I asked. The guests are arriving. The ceremony starts in less than an hour. I want my sister back, she said simply. I want you beside me today, not just as the venue owner, as my sister, but I'll understand if that's asking too much after what I did. The vulnerability in her request was what finally reached me. Not demanding, not entitled, but hopeful, despite expecting refusal. It's your wedding day, I said finally. If you want me there as your sister, I'll be there. But we have a lot to work through afterward. She nodded eagerly. Yes, whatever you need. Family therapy, boundaries with Margaret, more direct communication, all of it. And Diana? I raised an eyebrow. Allison grimaced. She's fired after today. I should have listened to your recommendations for planners in the first place. For the first time in weeks, I felt a genuine smile form. Better late than never, I suppose. Allison stood smoothing her dress. Will you help me fix my makeup before guests arrive? Like you used to do before my high school dances? Of course, I said, rising to join her. We weren't fully healed. That would take time, honest conversations, and changed behavior. But as we walked together toward the bridal suite, I felt something shift between us, a foundation for rebuilding what had been damaged. The ceremony would proceed more authentic now than the picture-perfect society wedding Diana had envisioned. And I would be there not just as the venue owner, but as family, with all the complexity, pain, and love that entailed. The wedding ceremony proceeded beautifully. From my position in the second row beside my father, I watched Allison and Nathan exchange vows beneath the garden pergola, sunlight filtering through wisteria vines. My mother sat beside me, squeezing my hand occasionally, words still insufficient but the gesture meaningful. Aunt Margaret maintained a careful distance, her influence visibly diminished by Allison's direct confrontation. The Hayes family, now aware of what had actually transpired, treated me with newfound, if somewhat uncomfortable, respect. Diana operated with subdued efficiency, her usual commanding presence tempered by the knowledge that her services would not be retained beyond today. She avoided direct eye contact whenever our paths crossed. During the cocktail hour, as guests mingled in the estate's east garden, Nathan approached me by the stone fountain. Susanne, he began formally, I owe you an apology. I regarded him carefully. For not intervening sooner. For allowing family pressure to override what should have been Allison's decision. For treating your relationship with my future wife as a problem to be managed rather than a bond to be respected. His apology was precise and specific, qualities I appreciated in business, and found surprisingly meaningful in this personal context. What changed your perspective? I asked. He considered the question seriously, seeing Allison today, truly seeing her. When she finally stood up to everyone and insisted on having you by her side, she was more confident and authentic than I've seen her in months of wedding planning. He paused. I realized I've been enabling her to become someone she isn't to please my family, and that's not the woman I fell in love with. That's unexpectedly insightful, Nathan. I'm a developer. I recognize solid foundations when I see them. He gestured between Allison and me. Your relationship is part of her foundation. I should have protected that, not undermined it. His analogy, while businesslike, demonstrated genuine understanding, Perhaps there was more depth to Nathan than I'd initially perceived beneath the polished exterior. "Thank you for that," I said sincerely. "And for what it's worth, I think you and Allison can build something wonderful together if you both remember to prioritize authenticity over appearances." He nodded thoughtfully before returning to his guests, leaving me with a newfound respect for my new brother-in-law. During the reception dinner, I noticed my mother watching me across the family table. When our eyes met, she excused herself and came to sit in the empty chair beside me. "Susanne," she began hesitantly, "I failed you." The directness surprised me. "Mom?" I should have stood up to Margaret. Should have insisted Allison treat you with respect. Should have recognized what was happening instead of trying to keep the peace at your expense. Her acknowledgement wasn't perfect. There was still a hint of self-justification in her tone, but it represented more accountability than she had taken in years of family conflicts. "Why didn't you?" I asked softly. She sighed. "It's been our pattern for so long. Margaret pushes, I accommodate, your father retreats, and you've always been strong enough to stand alone. I think I convinced myself you didn't need protection." She met my eyes directly. "But everyone needs someone to stand up for them sometimes." "Yes," I agreed simply, "they do. I can't change overnight," she admitted. "But I want to do better. For both my daughters." It was a beginning, if not a complete resolution. "I appreciate that, Mom. We'll work on it together." As the evening progressed, I found Allison during a brief moment between dances. She looked radiant happiness, softening the stress lines that had marked her face throughout the planning process. "Thank you," she said, hugging me tightly. "For everything. The venue, your forgiveness, being here despite everything." "We're sisters," I replied. "That doesn't mean accepting mistreatment, but it does mean I'll always be open to reconciliation when it's genuine." She nodded against my shoulder. "I meant what I said earlier. Things will be different going forward, starting with boundaries for Aunt Margaret." "Speaking of Margaret," I said, noticing our aunt watching us from across the room, "she hasn't apologized." Allison straightened. "No, and I don't expect she will. But her influence over this family has peaked. Dad told me he's finally standing up to her, and Mom seems ready to follow his lead." "About time," I commented, though without bitterness. Margaret's power had always depended on our collective willingness to yield to it. With that, changing her impact would naturally diminish. "1 week from today," Allison said decisively. "Coffee at Cornerstone. Just you and me. The first of many sister dates to rebuild. I'll be there," I promised. After Allison and Nathan departed amid sparklers and cheers, I remained behind watching my staff begin the meticulous cleanup process. Jennifer approached, clipboard in hand. "Successful event by all metrics," she reported professionally before softening. "And it looked like some successful family repair work, too." A beginning, I agreed, with more work to come. The following days brought reflection and adjustment. I developed a new policy for the venue regarding events involving personal relationships, clear contracts, specifying roles and expectations, designated intermediaries for communication, and explicit boundaries between professional services and personal attendance. These weren't just business protections, but personal ones, structures that would prevent future blurring of lines that had contributed to the wedding crisis. 1 week later, as promised, Allison and I met at Cornerstone Cafe. Without the pressure of wedding planning or family audience, we began the real work of rebuilding trust through honest conversation. "I've been thinking about why I was so susceptible to Margaret's manipulation," Allison admitted over her latte. "I've always measured myself against you, your success, your confidence, your independence. When Margaret suggested you might overshadow my wedding, it triggered all my insecurities. I never saw it as competition," I told her. "Your path was different from mine, but equally valuable." I know that now, she nodded, but I needed to learn it the hard way, apparently. Our weekly coffee dates became a sanctuary for authenticity. Sometimes difficult, always healing, these conversations gradually restored the foundation of our relationship while establishing healthier patterns for the future. The experience transformed me as well. I recognized how my success had created both pride and resentment within my family. How my independence had sometimes been interpreted as distance. While none of this justified how I'd been treated, Understanding the dynamics helped me navigate them more effectively. I established clearer boundaries with family love without conditions but involvement with expectations of mutual respect. I became more explicit about my needs rather than assuming professional competence extended to mind reading in personal relationships. Heather observed the changes during our monthly dinner. "You seem different," she noted. "More grounded somehow." "I've learned that forgiveness isn't weakness," I explained. "It's strength when it comes from choice rather than obligation. And boundaries aren't walls, they're the foundation that makes genuine connection possible." 6 months after the wedding, I hosted a family dinner at my home, a deliberate choice of neutral territory. Neither the family home where old patterns prevailed, nor the estate with its professional associations. Margaret declined the invitation with a transparent excuse. Her absence created space for new family dynamics to emerge, my father more vocal, my mother more direct. Allison and Nathan participating as equal adults, rather than deferential children. The conversation flowed more authentically than any family gathering I could remember. Looking around the table at these imperfect people I loved, I realized something profound sometimes. A family crisis, painful as it is, creates the opportunity for growth that gentle pressure never could. The uninvitation that had shattered my heart had ultimately created space for rebuilding relationships with stronger foundations. The wedding venue crisis hadn't just tested my professional boundaries, it had forced a reckoning with family patterns that had needed addressing for years. In standing firm while remaining open to reconciliation, I had helped catalyze changes that benefited everyone willing to participate in the growth. Would you have made the same choices in my situation? Would you have drawn the line somewhere different, or handled the reconciliation in another way? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories about family challenges and growth. Remember to share with anyone who might be navigating difficult family dynamics. Sometimes knowing we're not alone in these struggles is the greatest support. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I wish you wisdom and courage in your own family relationships.